Okay guys, welcome back. Okay, now again it's sort of a bits and pieces day to day, and it's not on one theme. It's not on the Mike Austin theme today, but you know, you have to have days like that, and I need days for my brain as well. I have to have different things to keep my mental acuity up in terms of things that I want to be able to give you that can benefit you in a lot of different ways. Now guys, when we talk about being able to swing the club on plane, I want to show you something that is quite obvious and is really never addressed by anyone that I've ever seen in the teaching fraternity ever. I actually mentioned it to David Ledbetter once, and he was quite surprised, because David's, you know, David used to say, we get connected here, and it's the body turn that takes the club to the top of the backswing. And I said, okay, I'll do exactly what you say. And I got here like that, and I said, so it's purely the body that takes the club to the top of the backswing in a conventional golf swing? He said, yeah. I said, okay, I'm just going to turn my body. How do we get the club up? How do I get it up? I said, what happens is you turn your body, you get to here, and then the hands lift the club onto plane. And he was a bit flummoxed. And he said, oh yeah, well you have to apply the hands in a sort of lifting manner. He said, but I want the people to be more connected for the early phase of the swing. I said, well that's okay, but if you were teaching an intellect, someone who was a geometry intellect and a biomechanical intellect, they would say to you, well, if I do what you say, I'll never get the club to the top of the swing. So you have to say, okay, we have to connect up here, the body, we have to connect, and we turn our shoulders here, but as we get to here, the hands come into play a little bit and they lift the club up. Now everybody does that, but that's not the point of what I want to talk about in this video. And guys, I've bitten my nails my whole life and I'm giving up, and they say you can't give up things that are inbred. Well, I've given it up, but the problem is my nails are growing so long that they're sticking into me with my grip. And why did I stop biting my nails? I just thought it was something to do. There was no need to bite your nails. I'm not playing the US Tour, coming down the line, the US Open. Wish I was. Okay, now talking about the plane. What do we think the plane is? Everybody says you've got to swing the club on plane. But I can tell you right now, guys, there's never been a player in the history of golf that's actually swung the golf club on the address shaft plane. Not one player in history. And I'll show you why. Sorry guys, sorry. Show you why. If, when I set up an address here, like that, if that shaft plane is my plane line, I would have to swing the club on that plane line to stay on plane, wouldn't I? Now I want to show you what that shaft plane line is. I want to show it to you. There it is there. Have you ever seen anybody swing a golf club on that plane? Ever? It's not possible. It's not possible. So that again is an anomaly or a misnomer in terms of talking about correct geometry. That's a standard shaft line. That's an extrapolation of it, and it goes to there, guys. We'd have to swing the club there. We'd have to swing it there. You ever seen anyone do that? Now Mo Norman swung the club on plane, and Bryson DeChambeau swings the club on plane. But they're different, guys. They don't have two axes. One axis, which is the arm, and the shaft is a two axis, right? They have a single axis in that they bring that shaft into line with the trail arm. They bring it into line with the trail arm. Now that's a single axis. That's a double axis, which 99.99999% of golfers have. But Mo didn't. Mo was here, and Bryson DeChambeau's here. Now, in order to get there, guys, you've got to have very, very upright golf clubs. Bryson DeChambeau's irons are 10 degrees upright, and Mo Norman's were 4 degrees upright. I know because I had a set of his irons, a set of his natural golf irons that were bent to his spec. Because if you have a conventional golf club and say, I'm going to go to single axis from double axis, as soon as you bring, if your club here is normal and maybe it's a standard lie or even a degree flat, or it might be a degree upright, as soon as you go from double axis to single axis, the heel comes off the ground and the toe sticks in the ground, which means the toe's going to hit the ground and open the club face and hit the ball straight right. And a lot of people that tried to learn the Mo Norman swing originally couldn't do it because their equipment wasn't right. And all the Mo Norman clubs that I sold, the natural golf irons, I bent them. I bent them upright. And they were hard to bend, but we made a special bending machine up and we heated the hosels. They were very intensive, but they worked for single axis. Okay, we don't want you to swing on a single axis. But if we're going to swing, but that's just an aside. But that's the realities of playing. Double axis, single axis. And guys, just digressing, but the genius of Mo Norman was that he knew in the golf swing that we have in the standard golf swing that the double axis coming into the impact forms one axis, and which causes most people to stand up. Now he worked that out. That double axis is never there at impact. It's always here. We go from double axis to single axis through centrifugal inertia. Or just the club doing a lot more work. So, and he knew that if the double axis turned into single axis, we had to stand up because the golf club was getting longer. It'd go in the ground. And every player in history has basically stood up coming down to facilitate that. Again, that's just an aside. But what I want to talk about is the importance of swinging the club on plane. Now, I've always, since I can remember being videoed, which would have been back in the mid-80s, that I've always swung the club on plane. And that's because I've always had a fairly shallow backswing or flat backswing. And the reason that happens, guys, is that I don't get to here, even if I'm turning my shoulder down like the Mike Austin, like the wrecking ball, the club will get to here. But what I did in my conventional swing is I would swing it here and I'd keep pressure on the grip and my hands in the backswing. Keep it down, 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 down. And of course, what I figured out early on, even though I wasn't a golf aficionado, I understood body geometry and mechanical application physics in a golf swing, and I knew that if here at address, if I could keep in a conventional golf swing, if I could keep that shaft on my shoulder line, in the backswing, and not have it up here above the shoulder line or the shoulder girdle, that I would be on plane. Now, essentially, front on, guys, an on-plane swing for me is that I should never have this shaft above my trail shoulder. If I swing it back here, that's where it is. Now, how do I achieve that? I pressure down with my hands. I put pressure into the shaft, into the golf club. When I say pressure down, I push down like that. I mentioned it to Mo Norman once. I said, because your swing is very, even though he was upright, his swing was very flat. Well, it wasn't flat, it was just in line with his shoulders. And that's why he was on plane so much. But Mo used to stand like that, so his back was very upright. And Ben Hogan wasn't bent over, Ben Hogan was here. And that's why Hogan swung the club on his shoulder line. They said Hogan had a flat backswing. Well, he did in conventional terms of description, but it was only because of he kept the club on his shoulder girdle line, which is there. But to get it there, guys, I've found that you have to have pressure. In the backswing, you have to pressure down here. Pressure down, pressure down, pressure down. Yep. Now, I don't swing the club back very far because I've always wanted to have a compact swing. Now, I can swing it back. I can swing it back to there. But that makes me feel a bit structurally, a bit wiggledy-piggledy. So, the message here is that if you really want to swing on plane, you should never, no matter whether you've got a lot of torso angle, back angle, or little torso angle, you should never swing the golf club above your shoulder girdle line in the golf swing. Because that to me is as close as you can get to a proper on-plane swing with a conventional golf swing with conventional or traditional mechanics. And that's why I've always been a pretty accurate type player. I haven't had a lot of variation in the golf swing in terms of ball flight. I've never had a lot of, weird bouts of hitting the ball indifferently. My miss is usually just a little push where I don't have the club face closed up enough to get a little draw. My standard shot's about with the drives about 3 to 5 yard draw. With the irons it's a couple of yards, maybe 3 or 5 yards. Not much at all. So the message here, guys, is that have a look at yourself in the mirror. Have a look. Watch your shoulder girdle and think, okay, I don't want this shaft to get any higher. That's the shoulder girdle from here to here, guys. That's the shoulder girdle. So I don't want the club to get any higher than that shoulder girdle. Okay, so what does that do to your flight?